think that several of us have been seen and heard. We're at those tables when it comes to, decision making to a certain degree. But there are still some missing gaps, and those missing gaps are a little bit more important. And this is why we need to, have those relationships with the business community here, because we have roundtables, at the city of Grand Rapids, and we pay for outside consultants to come in and kind of help us with studies, whether it's from the Brookings Institute or these different places. But the action and the implementation is where we seem to fall short, and then we also fall short with real relationships. We have a lot of resources. A good friend of mine, Dale Ross, he always says that GR is resource rich and systems poor. We're one of the most charitable communities in the world, but we still need the same charity, so that means it's not working. You don't want to have to be giving to the same charities 10 years from now, Right. Certain things will be around forever, right? Like world hunger, somebody's going to be hungry in the world, and you want to contribute to that. But we have a whole bunch of targets here in Grand Rapids that are extremely solvable. We just need to look at the bullseye and actually stop being afraid and partner with the people who have the indigenous wisdom and knowledge, and do our work, put our heads down, do our work, and get it done.
Yeah. Well, I want to just loop back to those tests. There was those studies that we are ranked. These are government funded and produced tests, which are and the results of those studies talked about income disparity, all kinds of different home ownership, and just systematically. And you can draw a map. You talk about redlining or whatever you want to do. You can just look at the demographics of the city from just that viewpoint, and you can point to the areas of lower income without even referring to the study.
And they're always right next door to places that are more affluent. That was the interesting thing about growing up on Sherman Street, which I have to say was critical in my entire development and formation in the way that I think about race in America. Yeah. Because I lived in what we would call the eye of the storm. Like, my block had a lot of stable family homes, but there was also a ton of different things going on in the city at that time. The crack epidemic is one of the biggest influences, I think, for any millennial, or Generation Xer that grew up in the core city, right. In the 80s and 90s. And me, I'm a 80s baby, grew up in the 90s. Yeah. And so seeing, hey, the home of Gerald R. Ford and, East Grand Rapids, right down the block by St. Stephen's, which we talked about earlier, and then you start to come in onto our block and the blocks further towards Fuller Street, you knew that there was abject poverty and real things going on, and there was warfare going on as a kid.
Well, even in Ottawa Hills, when you go south of Hall Street and north of Hall Street, especially as you align closer to east, and those are different worlds. And you go across Giddings, or you go across towards MLK Park, it's a different world, and that's. I don't know how we change that necessarily in the short term. I don't think that's the point. The point is that we have these hard lines that stop this influx of communication, this cross-pollination of ideas, of love and concern for your neighbor, and also just empathy for how if you can't recognize your privilege, you can't really there'll always be I did this, but you're doing that type of thing.
Well, let me be the Pete Sampras to your Andre Agassi, right?
Ooh, now we're talking.
I'm thinking a little different now, man. My experiences have led me to become a little bit more mathematic. And in being mathematic and being logical, one can take that as being cold. But I think that ownership and economic empowerment is one of the key ways that we can solve a vast majority of the systemic issues that we have around race in America.
Okay.
And so while I love the sentiments, and I think that there will, be people like yourself who are conscious, who will become, woke and awake to the issues, right? I'm not holding my breath for it, but what I am what I am willing to protest about, what I am willing to apply pressure in our community with different institutions about, is not having the same access to opportunity that other communities have had.
Yeah.
And I think When you hear Willie talk about real estate and territory, a part of our ethos and our philosophy is to be unrelenting in seizing opportunity. And that's the only reason why we've been able to achieve, and we haven't achieved a whole lot yet. We're young and there's a long way to go. But where people are deriving some inspiration from our stories and from the limited success that we've had, it's because we don't hold you up. We're in it to win it. We'll fight with you about what we think we should have and what our community should have. And we're not going in to have a door open for us and then close it for everybody else. I want everybody who grew up in that uptown neighborhood, from wealthy, all the way up to Franklin. I want them to be able to access those same opportunities. And if I haven't done that, then I haven't done my job.
This Full Exposure podcast episode has been made possible through the support of Metro Health, University of Michigan Health, and Dr. Peter Hahn, who believe that creativity and the arts are essential to a rich, healthy, and fulfilling life.